This is Critical Nonsense, our high-lowbrow show about culture, science, and tech. This week, I ask Aaron and Joey about the cake renaissance. Or enlightenment. Or something.
Woo! Him. Me. Cake.
Wow.
This is what a Joey sounds like.
That's what an Aaron sounds like. You got me on that one. That was good.
And this is what an executive producer and executive pastry chef, Jess Vander, sounds like.
Hi, this is Jess.
Yes.
Chef.
Yes. Yes, chef. Oh,
Chef,
heard
chef.
chef.
No, Jess Chef.
I'll take it. I like it.
Yeesh.
Mm-hmm.
This house is clean. Ain't nobody got time for
Spotless.
cleaning. Spring has
Nope.
sprung. We're done with
Swiffered.
you.
Bye-bye.
Open the windows. Get your whole shit covered in pollen. We're done with it.
I'm not going to take that literally. I love it. So what are we here to... I feel like, given Joey's prologue, that we might have a hunch about where we're going to go on this journey today. But I would love for you to tell us what's percolating in your mind oven right now.
Cake.
Yeah, it's cake. So a week ago, I stumbled upon a post of a baking icon of our modern times, Claire Saffitz, where she shared a picture of a cake that she had created and wrote a post about, that I'm now pulling up right now, that stuck out to me and caught me off guard. And I'm going to read aloud to you what she said. The picture is of a chocolate sort of sheet cake, meaning sort of a rectangular looking cake entity. And
Not a
it's
bunt.
covered, not a bunt. And it's covered in fresh, real flowers put on top. And she goes, I made this layered chocolate sheet cake quite a while back for a special occasion, and though I didn't post it at the time, I always meant to, so I could shout out a few of the brilliantly creative cake makers I follow, whose works I find so interesting and inspiring. There's truly a cake renaissance happening out there. And she tags at least 10 different other people who have Instagram accounts where they're sharing their cake creations. And I couldn't help but get fixated on this idea of a cake renaissance. And what is the cake renaissance happening right now as represented by these bakers? Like, is there an idea of this that I didn't know about? And so I started clicking through and was so sort of overwhelmed by the range of how one could interpret this. You'll see cakes that are... I looked up an article to help me describe it, but Sevier described it as weird ass cakes. So just like just absolutely over the top, insane looking cakes like that of Frosted Hag, and you can look at their cakes, and I'll put some tags in the show notes. Which looks like something like a giant pile of cake straight out of a fever dream of Alice in Wonderland, but like vomited out some like cake something out of there. But there are also these wildflower cakes, kind of like what Claire Saffitz put out, of just a bunch of real flowers that you can't eat on top of your cake. There are also there's a resurgence of something called the Lambeth cake, which is where you put like piping on top of a base of piping, or a base of frosting. So it's called like over frosting or over piping, so that you have like a clean underlayer, and then you have like very fancy lace looking, filigree looking frosting on top. It's very vintage looking, frosting over frosting. And I couldn't help but notice this like backswing to the maximalism of the cake universe. And I know this is like one of the longest running Joey level introductions, but you need all this context so that I can ask you the question.
You do this every time.
You do this every time where you blame me, but really it's you. But it just got me onto this question about how cake is a reflection of our time. And so I would love to take this rabbit hole Alice in Wonderland journey with you to explore what does cake tell us about now?
Ooh.
I just wanted to make a quick corrections department.
Oh my god.
It's Renaissance.
Oh, the Renaissance period.
Renaissance.
The cake Renaissance.
Indeed. I mean, it does take me to a lot of places, but I think the singular place that I will start is Buddy's Cake Bakery, King of Cakes, over in Maryland, right? And so there's some like things that come top of
Maryland?
mind that
Isn't
are
it
probably
Jersey? Isn't it like Hoboken or something?
Corrections department, email. I hope that all of you who know are screaming on the subway or in your cars or wherever you're listening to this, in your home office. So
Jersey City.
Wherever. Okay, so King of Cakes. I'm mixing up the two guys. So it's Buddy, and then there's the other dude who's in Baltimore that's got like the other cake. Well, we're gonna put a lot of cake reality show.
Big shouts to the other dude.
Absolutely.
Big shouts to the other dude.
But my point where I was going with this is that the last time that I can think of a moment in which the cake was happening, two things happened. One is that the cake became mini because we had the cupcake craze of like Magnolia and Buttercup Bakery and all that around the time that like Sex and the City was happening in like the early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
Then we had the like professional cake reality show, but it's also got a storefront moment with Buddy, for example, which has done extremely well, but is also specifically cake for the masses. So just between those 2 points, what you have is like a premiumification of cakes, which is making them these little things that are very delicious and special and twee and expensive, and you can only get them in New York, to this like Jersey City bake shop, which is going to have a cake for you. Like you can see it on TV and go get it, which is also like the nature of Vegas and food as well, right? And so I will say the other moment that came after that I would argue is Cake Pops, which again was super massified very, very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
We could get those at like Starbucks and shit like that.
Mm-hmm. And
to me, in this moment, the flat-footed way that I would put forth is like, this is what happens when Instagram cakes. This is how you get cake being more about the visual spectacle than the tasted spectacle.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's no longer as interesting what it tastes like, what the ingredients are. It is, what is it going to look like? Is it cake on Netflix?
Are we going to talk about is it cake? Like
we have to,
we
partially because Howie Day is amazing, but
is
also
it cake?
Which is so, if anyone does
cake.
not know what
It's
the
cake.
show is, it literally is in the name. Contestants make cakes that look like everyday things, and from far away, people have to guess, is it cake or not? And then you find out if it's cake. It's a very simple concept. Like it's very simple and effective.
It's entertaining. I would say
It's entertaining.
I mean,
Watch it on Netflix.
It came from social media where people were just like making cakes that didn't look like cakes and then cutting them, and they're like, not again. It was cake. I didn't know.
Yes.
But it
Meanwhile,
turns
like
out
Japanese game shows have been doing this for a long, long time. Of like,
Right.
try to see if it's edible. No, it's the door handle. No, it's actually chocolate.
The door handles and the shoes are always my favorite. In those clips that I've seen, the shoe is always my favorite. But that's it. It becomes more about the way the cake looks, not about what it tastes like, which is weird, but also is like, maybe like we're coming out of like we're all locked in our houses forever and everybody's baking bread and whatever that we were doing. And so I think that like I think one of the lingering after effects of the pandemic, or the quarantine that was related to the pandemic, is also just spending more time making stuff and being surprised by it. So I think it's my hypothesis is that it tells us our Instagramification and our DIY resurgence-ness. That's my hypotenuse hypothesis.
Well, my Instagramification was like what was in my head too, like particularly when you're talking about like a chocolate sheet cake covered in flowers, like you can't specifically like inedible flowers.
Can't
like
be et.
Inedible. Can't be
Yes.
et. It can't be et.
It can't be et.
But what's interesting in what you said, and like there was like controversial article last year at some point about like TikTok being like very Dada, like the humor on TikTok was Dada and like surrealistic. Like some of the cakes that you were talking about, that is like whatever, like garbage pile cake or whatever it was that you said.
Yeah.
Like to me fits more in that spectrum, but both are coming from that aesthetic perspective, right? Like what we talked about. I'm still waiting. I don't think the Ice Spice episode has dropped yet, but I was like, later that evening, I was like, shit, am I going to get canceled for saying Ice Spice is a vibe about aesthetics? It's not about the music. I was like, I said I still like it. It's cool. Anyways, but
blame it on the edit.
But it feels like, you know, like, look at him. He's in his mood. It does feel that it is based on aesthetics, right? Like I'm just imagining Paul Hollywood being like, it looks very precious, but you didn't get your flavors right, or like whatever.
It's
right?
a bit
like,
stodgy.
Yeah. Yes.
Underdone.
Well, that's really interesting because like by the nature of those shows, you've got an intermediary who is like, applying the full holistic critique that one cannot have as a viewer of a tasteable object. Like, by the way, this was like the criticism of Julia Child's show originally was like, no one's going to watch a cooking show. Like you can't taste the food. So why would anyone watch it? But what's interesting is that the answer to that was like, oh, because people want to be able to make stuff in their homes. And I question whether or not any of this is about making these cakes at home. And so when you take out that intermediary and it's just like, well, all I want to do is be able to look at it and say that's cool or that's ugly. It really doesn't matter that it's got stodgy bottom or like, any of those things.
It's a little close.
Is it soggy bottoms? It's either stodgy, a little close, or it's got a soggy bottom. I mixed all of my Hollywoodisms up. Yeah.
I don't know, folks. It feels a little tricky to say that these cakes don't taste good, especially now that we're beyond like the fondant era of cakes.
Leave my fondant alone. I know it's over. I know
it's just
over,
like some are good, but it depends, and like mostly you peel it off. But you know what I'm saying? Like I think in some ways there is oh my gosh, the fondant and the renaissance of cakes. I think in this sort of new cake generation, I actually get the sense that there is more freedom for good tasting things because of how creative you need to be for it to look anything special or come across in some special way. You almost necessarily have to have a taste experimentation or exploration component along with it. So I don't know. I think it's hard to claim. And in fact, even some of as I was looking into this, like some of these cakes that look crazy also have crazy flavors or really unique combinations of things. So it feels even more like an experience when you have it. And I feel like that also ties to another thing about this that is really interesting to me. And I realize like I'm also a little late to this game, folks. I'm bringing this up, but even going back into early or into late 2021, there's this New York Times piece about the wacky, whimsical cakes era. And I think it starts to also create like a couple other interesting potential themes, patterns, etc. beyond just what it looks like or beyond just what it tastes like. It's also like who's baking it. And there was this whole exploration down that where I was like getting into the realm of like the professional cake reality show era of this very like masculine defined this is what cakes are and I'm going to judge them and all of that versus like cake liberation and all these female bakers and having it not be of the bygone era of like you're a housewife so you're supposed to make cakes. It's almost like rejecting like all of those concepts and yet also sort of like reclaiming them. I think it has to be bigger, whether or not we know what these cakes taste like, or whether we like how they're starting to look. Like, it feels like there's something bigger going on here.
Can I read you someone's interpretation of the 7 characteristics of the Renaissance, and we can evaluate whether we think
Yes.
cake is going
this.
You
through
can.
Yeah.
Yes, you can.
So, rebirth of naturalism. I think in this case, you're talking about a nude sheet cake covered in flowers. Like,
Nude or not nude? I feel like we're past the naked cake time period of the tens.
I would agree with that.
but cutting back to natural ingredients, organic
Forms.
baking,
Yes.
all of that. Like, I feel like that one we can give it a check, right?
I agree.
Perspective and depth in art. Is it cake? Feels certainly like one form of that, but experimentation with form, and even you talking about like
Flavors.
experimental flavors being put in experimental packages.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
Gonna give that a yeah.
Or even challenging, like, a cake is this shape. It's like tiered or it's round. Like,
Mhm.
if you, the crazy like arched cakes, which is just impractical. Like, cakes don't want to be
Mhm.
vertical, but like, I guess you could try it. Or the baking engineering show on Netflix too, which because
Yes.
they clearly know that this is a thing. Where you're trying to like make a cake into a car that can withstand a crash dummy test. Like,
Mhm.
that's not what cakes are for, but maybe it's art.
Yes.
The next one is create non-religious themes, and which I would interpret in this case potentially as like non-dogmatic, a non-dogmatic approach to what is or isn't cake, right? Like, is it cake? Maybe still fits in that idea, but like the idea of sort of, only French style, cooking, or only like more experimentation outside of like systemic organized like power structures, maybe.
What would be the original religion of cake then? If it is bucking the
Ooh.
religion of cake, what was it?
Whoa. So my mind goes to, and partially it's just because I believe that we're very, like, our whole society is very Europeanized, would be like the 3-tiered wedding cake.
Mhm.
Whoa!
I think
Yes.
that is like the cake. And that's like, it's like that thing is hard, it's precise. It require, like, you can only get it from someone that's making it for you. It's not to be made at home, like by a home baker in theory. And it's only for one instance. And on top of that, it is part spectacle, part taste. It's supposed to be for this one-off life event that sits and looks gorgeous and then also has to be consumed by all your guests and show off to them. And so if that were the cake, then yeah, and that represents dogmatic cake, then I would say that absolutely we are bucking that bronco right now.
Advancements in new technologies such as printing and gunpowder. What
So new-
about experimental
technologies.
ingredients
Yeah.
like non-gluten based, like vegan cakes, or like choosing to experiment with new ingredients? Or is there new like technology like in kitchens that would fit that?
You could say some of that even began in the 50s of like the
Mhm.
baked Alaska Jell-O, like
Yep.
new cake technologies emerging.
Yeah, I agree, because I was thinking of xanthan gum, and I forgot that
Mhm.
xanthan gum was probably used first around then. Like, it was that type of stabilizer.
Mhm.
And then it's coming back now as well and being used in really creative ways. Yeah.
And like the Smitten Kitchen, those little balls that have like juice in them types of stuff in that like gastropub era, like some of those things that were coming out then are now getting used in like
Molecular gastronomy.
molecular gastronomy. That one.
I was like,
just
not
like
like
the
the
idea.
burger
I was like, it had
establishment.
gastro.
Yes,
I'm outside
yes.
my comfort zone.
Similar.
I like a molecular gastronomy gastropub. I think that we need to
Ooh.
go back 10, 15, or 15 years and make that happen.
Oh, that's such a
Yeah.
good idea. Wait, what about privately owned
Dufresne?
art?
Yeah. Oh yeah, privately owned art. That's a thing.
Privately owned art.
100%.
People are
I would
making their own
argue-
cakes instead of going to the
Exactly. Bingo. Yes. Yes.
And or like one of a kind cakes where it's like you get a commission as any Medici what's it called when you are offering the money to someone?
A tithe?
No.
Ooh, I'm not gonna
Patron?
A patron?
A patron
Patron,
of
yeah.
the
Ooh,
cakes.
I see.
A patron of the cakes where you're like, this is a once in a lifetime, like you and only you and your friends at this salon will get to experience this cake renaissance
There it is.
art form.
Yes.
Oh.
I agree with that. And that goes to, please, Joey, take us to the next one.
Shift in balance of power among Europe's ruling elite. You kind of touched on this one, Aaron.
You really
100%. 100%. You know, and I'll bring it up. Tom Colicchio and Gail Simmons were on Watch What Happens Live with Andy Cohen last night because Top Chef World All-Stars is going on. And they were asked, what is the thing that's going on in over the past 20 years in food that has been the most revelatory and changed the industry the most?
Mhm.
And the answer, first of all, Gail's incredible. And I'm
Obvious.
obsessed with her. She is so the shit. Legend of our time. I agree. Her answer really right off the bat was just that there are more voices and perspectives that are represented in food now than ever before. And I think that like we are literally watching in so many other cultures the intermingling across geographic lines and across class lines, which I think does make a big difference when we talk about ingredients and time and like space. Like in theory, these things are made with very available ingredients and to those who have the time to make them. And those interests, like the intersection of those things has made and blown up and become much more expansive than it once was. And that's pretty cool. So yeah.
Yeah. It's like the melting
so.
cake.
Yes.
So we're checking that right off.
Checked.
Yeah.
And we're making cakes from all over the world. Like, oh,
Yep.
you want a cassava cake from Southeast Asia? You
Mm.
got
You
it.
got it.
You got it. Just wanted to say
okay.
you got it. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, you want a
Okay, all right.
milfoy cake? You want a matcha flavored milfoy cake? Okay. Like, let me take French your little milfoys and stacking up your little crepes, and then like
Mhm,
take
your
some
little
flavors
crepes.
from the rest of the world. Oh, look,
Yep.
vanilla great.
Oh,
Buttercream
Lady
great.
M, I'll call
How
you
about
up.
some matcha? How about some matcha? How about some taro? Okay, thank you.
I don't know if the listeners recognize that I just became a listener in this and was enjoying the shit out of it. Like, y'all don't have to stop. That was delightful. Wow. Brilliant.
There's one more?
Brilliant.
There's the last one. Birth of Humanism, a way of thought that focuses on human beings and their potential for achievement. Cake achievement, 100% people are out here just trying to like get into cake college and prepping their cake resume and taking their cake SATs so that they can cake achieve.
Okay, maybe even less dramatic than that is even in Claire
Fine.
Safitz's own book. One of the first introductory pages is a matrix that plots the recipes across the axes of time to bake and difficulty, so that when you become expert, you can take on the croquembouche and you can like do the really hard desserts, because otherwise you weren't ready. You weren't
Don't
ready
start there.
before. But that idea of
Keep
of
your
cake
nose
achievement,
out of this Swiss meringue.
but also that in time that you can have your own sort of cake development and growth, and you can even being able to concoct certain types of things is a sign of its own achievement for your own self-development.
So that you can be not underproved, but proved.
Of course. You know, this I can't get my words out because I'm so excited. I'm afraid that this might end up gallivanting into a wrap-up corner, but I have a hypothesis, which is that we are simply in the midst of an ongoing cake renaissance that started
Yes.
in the 1940s.
Yeah.
That's our cake renaissance period is still underway with the advent of the
Are we in the
technology
cake
and the
enlightenment?
space. Whoa.
What?
The Renaissance has come to fruition to bring us to the cake enlightenment?
You know,
wait though,
we
maybe.
might be.
But
we really
maybe
might.
though.
Because, I mean, legitimately, like, it all started with, like, you needed time and space and materials. So lifestyles had to be a certain way to allow for cake making at home, not in professional spaces. Then there's the addition of media, which is going to create an aesthetic conversation that's been going on since the 1940s, and it's just been changing platform over time. And now everybody is now, more than ever before, more people around the world are able to now explode through. Cake enlightenment sounds right to me.
Your neighbor's got a stand mixer. More ovens
Yep.
have convection. Like,
Yep.
you have access. You can buy raw vanilla beans in your McCormick aisle at the grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa.
We're
So
enlightened.
so what you're saying is what we thought was a cake renaissance
Oh, God.
is actually something that we have seen come and go from the years of the pineapple upside down cake, from the years of the Pillsbury bundita, from the years of the dieting carrot
Bundit?
cake,
You got me. You got me. That was good. Those were real good.
red velvet, chocolate lava.
Mm-hmm.
And today we are in a new period. The cake enlightenment, which I hate to say. I think we need a better name. I don't think that's going to last. But an enlightenment
And cake
period
and
of cake. Oh.
Enlightened
Is
cake? I'm just going to throw it there. I mean, you know,
Right.
I moved a syllable.
The age of enlightened cake
Yes.
with a new intellectual and philosophical approach to cake. Now that we are more focused on the growth and development and joys of cake creation.
Everyone's free to experiment.
Everybody's free. I'm sorry. It's not even funny. It's so lame. Everybody's free to
Well.
feel, eat cake. I messed up. I'm sorry.
We
Rosler
wrapped
was mad.
we wrapped up the corner. We started with a prologue of singing, and we ended with an epilogue of singing from Aaron.
Indeed.
Fiend.
Scene. Fiend.
Critical Nonsense is a Sylvain production.
Brought to you by that little bit of cake that you should have put a little bit more flour in your bundt pan in ahead of time with the butter so it didn't stick, and now you're trying to use a knife to get it out and you're messing up your bundt pan and you're like, why did I use a knife to begin with? I should have used a rubber spatula
Yes.
before. Like, ugh. And geez, it's cakey. I think that's their tagline.
Yep.
Yeah.
As always, we'd like to thank executive producer and the lava liquid center of our hearts, Jess Vander.
I'll take it.
And Alex Contel, who really looks like the mirror glaze of the universe if you listen close enough. Alex Contel. Did
we
that
like-
sentence make sense?
No, but we love it.
Love you, Alex.
Also
we'd like to
sound
thank-
engineer. Okay.
Yeah.
There we go. Thank you. Definitely screwed that up. Thank you.
We'd like to thank programming coordinator and Fudgy the Whale, Les Jacobs.
Yes, and really, they're basically like a bunch of sprinkles on our souls. Sarah Gilbert and Nora Mestridge. Thank you very much for your
And as
production.
always, thank you, sorry, Ellen.
More sorry than thank you. That's my bad.
Special thanks
Special thanks.
to Fudgy the Whale.
Oh, also,
I mean-
yeah, just like, is that,
Quoi?
I don't know who that is, but I hope it's
that
a
a thing?
compliment.
Fudgy the Whale, the
Also-
ice cream cake, Fudgy the Whale with like
No one knows.
the
We don't-
ice cream and the fudge
like
layer
from a
and then the
good
crunchy
humor.
layer.
Never heard such a thing.
I think it's a
I see.
No idea what
Carvel.
you're talking about.
It sounds like
What does it sound like?
Well, it sounds like my teeth are very sensitive and they hurt in thinking about it. But I quickly want to both corrections department and thank you Duff Goldman from Ace of Cakes Bakery and the Ace of Cakes show, and Buddy Velastro, the cake boss from the Cake Boss show. That's where
clears it up.
Yeah. Yep.
I would also like to thank the superior form of cake storage, which, if you didn't know, I shall enlighten cake.
Enlight cake. Enlight cake us.
Which is
I
that
shall
instead, which is instead of putting the cake into the container as you normally would, you actually put the cake on the lid and you put the base on top of it so that when you remove the voluminous part of the storage container, you don't have to extract out the thing. It's just there and you can slice it directly on the lid. Does this make sense?
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you more questions about this, but I like it.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, this has been Cakey. I'm going to go make some cake this weekend. And I'll let you know how it goes. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. And until next time, friends.
Cake you very much, Jess.
Oh, yeah, cake you too.
Wow. All right. Bye.
Bye.
Recording. I'm actually recording. The numbers are rolling. 3, 2, 1.